One man was forced to get a public demonstration permit to hold a faith-based sign on a public sidewalk. Hi, I'm Peyton Luke, and you're watching First Liberty Live. Today's story takes us to Chapin, South Carolina, where Ernest Giardino was told he needed to get a permit to share his faith with a sign on a public sidewalk. Joining us to explain all the details is Senior Counsel Nate Kellum. Nate, welcome to First Liberty Live.
Thank you, Peyton. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you with us. So I gave a short introduction to the situation with Mr. Giardino, but I want you to go a little bit more in depth to the story and how this all started.
You summed it up well, Peyton. Ernie Giardino, he's burdened to tell the truth about Jesus, to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with others. And so the way he wants to do this is through signs. He likes to hold up signs saying, give your burdens to Jesus. Jesus Christ, he paid the price. These sorts of things. And these are very effective because he's able to communicate with a lot of people at the same time. And if people want to engage in conversation, he's able to do that as well. And so he had done this in his hometown of Chapin, South Carolina, for some 8 months until one day, June 20 of this year, a police officer stopped him and told him that he needed the town's permission. He had to obtain a permit in order to hold this sign. This was very surprising. The whole idea was dubious. So he checked with the chief of police and the code enforcement officer, and they confirmed, yes, from this point forward, Chapin will require him to obtain a permit in order to hold up a sign saying, give your burdens to Jesus. And then on top of that, he had to provide a 2-week advance notice, and that he would only be allowed to do so for 30 minutes, and he would have to move every 15 minutes.
Wow. And so when he was requested to get the permit, would one permit last him a couple months, or was he going to have to get the permit every single time for every day he chose to stand on the sidewalk with a sign?
Every single time, Peyton. That's the idea. And for 30 minutes, he has to get one permit.
Wow. And didn't I also hear at one point that it was recommended to him that after every 15 minutes, he had to change which corner he was on top of that?
That's true, but it was stronger than a recommendation. He was told that in order to comply with the law, he would have to move, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But essentially, he's standing in one place for 15 minutes, and he only has 30 minutes total, but he has to move from that location to another location. And so really, all these things just serve to encumber his speech, really interfere with his ability to get his message out.
So did he never get a permit, or did he eventually end up getting a permit?
He did obtain a permit, and so he wants to do it. He wants to share the good news of Jesus Christ, and so whatever way he can, he's trying to comply with the system. He is told this is what you need to do, and he's one to comply with the law. So he's gone through this process. But what he has found over time, Peyton, is over these last several months, is that this is really an onerous process, because if you have to provide 2 weeks advance notice, well, you schedule it for Tuesday, 2 weeks from now. What if it's storming that day? What happens then? Well, then you've got to apply for another 2 weeks in advance. And then also, as far as like 30 minutes, he wants to stand out there a lot longer. So that's why he contacted First Liberty, because of these concerns.
Sure. So he wanted to comply, but he knew that there were issues with the situation that was in place by Chapin, because I know last week when we even posted our press release on social media, we received a comment, why can't people just follow the rules? So I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to that, because what are the legal issues with Chapin's current rules and policy?
I think perhaps a better question is why couldn't the town comply with constitutional rules? This is the thing, is that there really shouldn't be any type of permit requirement to as far as someone being able to share their beliefs in the public square. The Declaration of Independence referred to it as inalienable rights. It's a fancy word, but basically what it means is God-given. These are rights that we are given by God. they're not granted by the government. So the government really put itself in this position where they are deciding, oh, it's okay for you to speak, not really okay for you to speak. Hey, maybe this time, Mr. Giardino, we'll let you speak, but next time maybe not. And then when you do, you're only going to be limited to 30 minutes. And so that's really what the problem is that he's willing to comply with rules, but these are blatant constitutional violations that no citizen should bear.
Sure. And just to support that point, I know that we had sent a demand letter to the town to address the situation. And in it, you worded it so well when you wrote it in your letter. So I just want to read it aloud because an excerpt of First Liberty's demand letter to the city said, permit schemes like the one found in Chapin have the effect of freezing speech before it is uttered. Permit schemes are thus viewed skeptically, being the most serious and least tolerable infringement on First Amendment rights. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that statement or expound upon?
Well, you're kind of giving me credit for it, Peyton, but actually a good bit of that is what the Supreme Court has said. I mean, this is what the Supreme Court has said over and over, is that it's known as prior restraints. That's the legal terminology, and that these things are really viewed with a very skeptical eye, and for good reason, because they do freeze the speech before it's even uttered. So you don't even know it's going to be a problem, and yet the government is stepping in and curbing it. And so that's why it really raises significant constitutional concerns, and for Mr. Giardino, very practical concerns about his ability to communicate the gospel.
Sure. And in this situation, was he by chance treated differently by the city than other people that maybe wanted to get a public demonstration sign? Was he different view to viewpoint discrimination, or because it was faith-based?
Well, this is the backdrop is certainly very questionable because he did it for 8 months. And to his knowledge, no one else was holding up a sign. We're talking about a very small town here, Peyton. No one else was really holding up a sign, doing anything like this. Suddenly, they decided that his activity is a demonstration and that he's going to have to get a permit requirement. And so as far as whether or not it applies to political signs, whether it would apply to commercial signs, that's actually yet to be seen. All we know at this point is that they are applying, and the only time they've ever applied this permit requirement is to somebody holding a sign saying, give your burdens to Jesus.
And so after our viewers are watching this episode, what are some of the key takeaways that you would like for them to have when it comes to understanding their constitutional rights for free speech in public?
Yeah, and I appreciate having that opportunity, Peyton, because it really is very important for us as citizens to appreciate these inalienable rights that we're granted by God, that have been acknowledged and affirmed in our founding documents. The U.S. Constitution set out in the First Amendment, the free speech clause, that we have a fundamental right to go out in public and share our beliefs with others. Now, we don't have the right to go on someone's private property and do so. Like if I was at your house with your husband, I said something that you two didn't like, you have every right to say, hey, Nate, we're going to show you the door. But in public, on a public sidewalk, that's where we have the right to exchange ideas with others. And so if you're ever faced with a situation where that seems to be questioned, or a police officer is indicating that you can't do that, please know you have a fundamental right to do what you're doing.
So we are waiting to hear a response back from Chapin in response to our demand letter, so which will determine our next steps. So we will eagerly be waiting to see what they say and look forward to giving our audience that update. But Nate, is there anything else that you would like to add regarding the specific legal matter?
Well, Peyton, my hope and my prayer is that the town will take a hard look at the Supreme Court cases that we cited in the letter, and that this would resolve this. Mr. Giardino, he's not one to make waves. He really isn't. He's not one to cause trouble. But he feels that this is something he cannot compromise. He wants to share the gospel with people, and he will not compromise that. And so my prayer is that the town will realize he has a constitutional right to do it.
Sure. Well, Nate, thank you so much for your work in defending religious liberty across America. And we just want to thank you for your time and joining us on First Liberty Live today.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. So to find out more about First Liberty and what we do to defend religious liberty in America, you can check us out at firstliberty.org. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Every like, every share of these episodes really helps us, and we thank you in advance. First Liberty, fighting for what matters most.